Welcome everybody, my name is 𝐏𝐸𝐬𝐬 and this is the Market Meditations podcast. We chat with fascinating people from around the world to extract mindsets, routines, stories and habits to help you build richer lives. Ever wondered how to make low-risk passive income that outperforms any saving account and the stock market? Well, that's what DeFi is and so much more. DeFi Dad is on today to talk about the basics, how to get started and how to start earning more with your crypto and your stablecoins. Before we jump into this episode, don't forget that I send hand-picked market news, insights, and education to over 6,000 traders and investors 3 times a week. To get access to this, all you have to do is sign up to 𝐏𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐬.substack.com. And also a quick thanks to our partners uTrust for making this podcast possible. There'll be more on them later. Meditators, welcome to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Today we are going to dive deep into DeFi. We're going to start from a beginner's perspective, make sure we can understand everything from how to get started with it to how to start earning some sweet interest rates that blow banks out the water. DeFi Dad, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Karush, for having me. Your accent is so calming. I need that. Maybe that would help me sleep at night when I haven't been sleeping for 3 years being in crypto. So anyways, great to be on.
It's funny you say that. You're not the first person who said I should start doing voiceovers for books. And yeah, maybe it's like so many people have said it that maybe I should start considering it.
That's a good idea. Even like like children's books or something. You could maybe a Disney character in the future as well.
Oh, that'd be my dream. Yeah. I absolutely love Disney and cartoon. Oh, that'd be the dream. Okay, I'm quitting crypto. Guys, the podcast is over. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's funny. We watch a lot of Disney at home right now, and it's I was gonna say, if anyone is expert enough to say that you could be a Disney character, it's me at this point. We watch it at least daily.
What's your favorite Disney?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Well, my kids are super young, so we're kind of watching most of the Pixar movies. I'd say Toy Story is hard to get away from. It's still like it's one of the best, but actually, I would say as an adult, I would recommend to anyone they should watch the movie Soul. It's this beautiful movie. It's all about this idea that he's a middle school piano teacher, or he's like the band director, and he dies, and it's about really like a movie about him like searching for his own soul. It's forewarning. It's a beautiful movie. Hard to like. If you don't cry, you might not be human.
Well, I felt the feels with Coco not too long ago, so definitely looking forward to seeing Soul properly. It's something that's on the list.
But I love we were gonna talk about DeFi, and here we are. We're just talking about Disney. This is a Disney movie review podcast.
They both begin with D, so we're on the right track. We're getting that. So maybe we can start with how you got into DeFi. Like, well, what brought you to DeFi from, say, Disney?
That's funny. That's great. I didn't think about that too, the D as well. So I got into DeFi really in the last like 2 years or so, and I've been in crypto for about a little over 3 years. So my background goes back to, at one point I was in chemistry. I eventually like got out of a chem PhD program, realized like I definitely didn't want to spend a life in a laboratory. And eventually I found my way into software. So I worked for a number of years in like pretty typical Silicon Valley type software companies. And the one thing that stuck out is around 2017 is when I first discovered crypto. So I was really late to the scene, I think, compared to a lot of people. But I had some friends at work who just said, hey man, like, you should check out Ethereum. Like it's, this really powerful software and you can build apps on it. And it, it's like right up your alley. It's all the nerdy stuff you love, like econ and public policy and governance and stuff like that. And I started listening to podcasts, listening and learning about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And yeah, I just fell down the rabbit hole like everyone does. I was like, there is this other like peer-to-peer banking architecture in the world. There's this ability to basically transact peer-to-peer, the way that email allows us to interact peer-to-peer, sending digital messages. And so that was it. Around like the end of 2017, I went to a conference, met a bunch of people, stayed in touch, and kept listening, learning, reading all about crypto. And it got to the point where I think the spring of 2018, the markets were really starting to unravel. Every last bit of crypto I had bought at that time was underwater. And I found that I was even more interested in wanting to like actually contribute to the space. So I ended up getting a job. I was pretty fortunate. Consensus, which is like kind of like a venture studio that builds applications on Ethereum. They were hiring, and I went from like a sales marketing job to like a project management role. And anyways, long story short, though, I worked there for about 2 years. I ended up working across multiple projects, doing everything from project management to like some marketing, to eventually I ended up working on this thing called the Ethereal Summit. And it was perfect for me because it was all about storytelling. It was trying to highlight the stories of founders that are building on Ethereum, and really trying to help like people get inspired to continue to build applications like DeFi on Ethereum. And around 2019, summer of 2019, having like worked in software forever and having been someone who would demo software all day long to others, I started playing with DeFi. Like I played with Compound and token sets, and Pull Together was launched around that time. And I just started tweeting about it. I was already on Twitter, pretty active, and not really helping anyone, just kind of following you and a number of other folks that I was trying to learn trading from. Credible Crypto was an incredible teacher. Josh Rager, Nebraska Gooner, Scott Melker. I was just trying to learn the basics: support, resistance, what it means to manage your risk, how to use a stop loss. I was smart though, because I figured out very quickly that I was like, I probably will never trade profitably, and I should probably stick to using the psychology that I've learned, the fundamentals of like really trying to understand the market at a macro level, use that to my advantage. And so I started to really go knee deep into DeFi. And DeFi to me was all about, it was the first product market fit for Ethereum. It was having banking applications without a bank, and being able to lend and borrow and trade, but do that without any sort of middlemen. And I've got to say, like, I've just felt lucky since then. I got to the summer of 2020, and I was by then making lots of YouTube videos, posting on Twitter, lots of tutorials about this is how easy it is to get involved in DeFi. Here's my own portfolio. And that's when I recently, in the last 6 months, started working with Zapper. So today I work with Zapper. I'm the Chief DeFi Officer of Zapper. And basically what we do is we're a tool for visualizing your DeFi portfolio. You just connect to your Ethereum wallets, as many as you'd like, and you can track all your assets and how they're performing, along with entering more complex opportunities in DeFi, like becoming a market maker, trading, and so on. So that was a very long answer, Karush, to how did you get started in DeFi? But here I am.
I mean, that was a brilliant answer. And I'd like to take the word luck out of the equation there. Yes, there's a certain degree of luck, but you spotted an opportunity in crypto in 2017. And as early as 2017, it sounds like you saw the decentralized finance capabilities, because I noticed the wording you use for how you described Ethereum. A lot of people just saw Ethereum as the new internet, and smart contracts are cool. Here's a million different things we can do with it. We can put, I don't know, koalas on the blockchain. Like no one, you specifically honed in on the finance side. You stuck to it. You got into the industry, and you're reaping the rewards now. So there's a certain degree of luck, but definitely hard work, perseverance, and also Zapper, fantastic tool. So, but before Zapper, we were manually.
You use. I didn't even ask you this. This is not a setup conversation. People are like, they're like, oh, here's the paid promo. Like, so Karush, then you say, oh, Zapper's wonderful. And I'll tell you more. No, it's awesome because the free part of Zapper, I mean, it's all I guess free, but you don't pay a fee to look at your wallet. There is a DEX aggregator which is powered by the 0x API. So you pay a small fee to 0x, and then as everyone knows, if you transact on Ethereum, you pay these small to larger network fees to get your transaction confirmed. But anyways, Karush, thanks so much. No, that's so nice of you to say.
No worries at all. Absolutely fantastic tool that really does save a lot of headache. It's the convenience of it that really makes sense, and it's actually my CFO who was a huge fan of it. He was like, when we were researching you, he specifically said, "Oh my God, he's on Zapper, like the tool I found recently that was saving us a whole bunch of trouble." So really great job over there. But before we get absolutely no worries.
Oh, I said just thank you. That's the best. Like, notice I like want to zero in now and ask you a million questions about how you guys use it, and we're always fascinated to learn too. Whether folks are using what we call Zaps. They're like DeFi shortcuts to participate in DeFi. And anyways, though, I'll ask you more
Sure,
questions
we'll
later.
dive deep
Let's go
after
back
the
to
episode.
your.
Well, what I wanted to ask next was how has it changed actually? So you started as early as 2019, then you went through the DeFi boom in 2020, and I mean it's still going on in 2021 right now. How has it changed from then till now?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you break down quarter by quarter what happened in 2020, I mean, first off, in early 2019, we were all coming off of a pretty severe market drawdown again. Bitcoin, I didn't draw down as far, but Ether fell all the way down to nearly like I think $85 around the end of 2019. So then what? We run into the pandemic, which is interesting because I still think the pandemic prompted everyone to have to stay at home. In a community, most of, I would say, the crypto community, a lot of us are more acclimated to working remote. So it didn't affect us in the same way, but it allowed everyone to skip the conferences and skip all the bullshit of, traveling, back and forth, commuting to jobs that didn't require us to be in an office. And so, in the spring, March 12th, that was Black Thursday, which was, all the markets unraveled, even the stock markets. But specifically, what Bitcoin fell to below 4,000, Ether fell to $85 for at least a few hours, and it was a pretty dark time. Like, I want to clarify, as like, if anyone is new to this space, you're going to hear a lot of people pretend like it's always been easy, and like they just put some money in and money goes up over time. And for me, I had been in the space almost 3 years, and on March 12th, I remember looking at my portfolio saying, after investing for over 3 years, I think I was underwater at one point that day and barely break even, thinking like, where is the return in this space? So anyways, long story short, though, we go into the summer, and what happened was Compound. So Compound is a lending and borrowing application on Ethereum. It's as simple as what I just described it. One can lend their assets like Ether or DAI, a stable coin, or wrapped Bitcoin. You can lend them and you earn lending interest. On the other side of the equation are borrowers who are borrowing your assets and paying that interest. And it's very, capital efficient because it's all run by smart contracts on Ethereum, which just means it's software. It's automated software that if you do something, then it does that. And that is what makes it so powerful. It eliminates all the banking, like middlemen and infrastructure.
It's just code
So
that runs the whole thing.
it's just, yeah, the same way, like if anyone's familiar with Salesforce, if you've ever used a software like that, or Marketo is called marketing automation software. It allows you to do really powerful things by automating, if this happens, then that happens, actions. So same thing with Ethereum. All these applications they're mirroring the banking applications that power the world, but they're eliminating the people, all of the overhead that normally underpins all of that. And as a result, normally users reap the benefits. You earn higher interest as a lender. You can potentially borrow at a lower rate. You can open up a loan in a few minutes versus having to apply, to a bank for, like a home mortgage and put through all that
So
paperwork.
is that why the returns are so much more lucrative? Is it simply the efficiency that middleman has been removed?
So not entirely. It is a combination too of, you have to keep in mind that each one of these new Ethereum applications, which more properly could be called like a DeFi protocol. So it's a protocol that allows me to do lending and borrowing with Compound. Aave is a lending and borrowing protocol. We have ones for insurance, ones for options. So basically every like money Lego you can think of has been built there. But the difference is how are decisions then made so that the protocols can be upgraded over time, so that basically, if you think about like Compound as like a little company, how does it truly stay decentralized? Otherwise, it just succumbs to like what is in traditional finance, where there's a centralized control. So when we talk about that, the way that we do that is they're called DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations, which if you throw aside all that bullshit language, all it means is that we have a community-owned alternative to what is normally a bank. And so with Compound, they launched a governance token. And the way they did it was very clever. They basically said that we want to reward those who participate and make Compound possible. Liquidity is king in DeFi, just like it is in traditional finance. So if you are a lender or borrower, we will reward you with an incremental amount of our comp governance token so that you can have a say in the upgrades and proposals for the Compound protocol in the future. And unlike traditional finance, or unlike even like crypto banking like Coinbase, when you trade on Ethereum, if you release a token like the comp governance token, all that's required is one individual. It could be me, who says, I've got some comp and I am willing to now provide it to a trading exchange, or a DEX, an automated market maker is what we call it, like Uniswap. And now I can let people trade between, let's say, comp and Ether. And so what happens is you let the buyers and sellers determine the price. Well, I would say that around like the end of May when this launched, all of us have been working in the space for years now. So now we have a chance to have a voice in Compound, which we all valued. It had, at that point, it was rising above 100 million in total value locked. It went up to like 1 billion within like a month's time. So suddenly you have a very active, passionate community that has a long-term mindset. And I think that recipe, combined with newly minted tokens that allow you to have a voice in the protocol, that's what started to drive the growth. Suddenly you have the comp token, and then there were lots of other governance tokens after that. So
I'm going to jump in there to see if I've understood this correctly. We have an exchange, not an exchange, sorry. We have like a company that's decentralized, no one owns it, and it does this service that allows borrowing and lending. Then suddenly this company says, let's create the equivalent of shares that give you voting rights. And they distribute them to everyone who's using this product. And then people decide these shares are going to have some value, and they go into the market and the value gets formed. And that's how the money gets created, seemingly out of nothing, but it's not nothing because it's from the value of the company or the program that's been created.
Yeah, it's what do you want buyers and sellers to decide the price of it is? I mean, you just let it trade on a peer-to-peer exchange like Uniswap. The Another way to frame it, and this is Santiago Santos from Perify Capital. He eloquently described this as like a Web3 customer acquisition cost. So imagine this. I was early to using Facebook. I was one of the, I think my school at the time was like the second or third school that used it. I think we were the third, actually. So I get into this. I'm, 19 years old using Facebook. Facebook should, in my opinion, looking back, like they owe me something. I mean, I helped to make Facebook possible. Now, when they IPO'd, imagine if they had gone back and said, thank you so much, DeFi Dad. Thank you to everyone that made this possible. We're going to reward you with some of our stock. And we're doing this because you as users, we want you to have a voice in the future of Facebook as a public company. That is what governance tokens are. But I would say that we all recognize that we're mainly focused on the voice of the people being involved in the upgrades and proposals. I want to say like no company is really trying to plan for a price, because that puts you in hot water thinking about whether or not this is a security then. So the goal of all teams at this point is, how do we create a vibrant, active community that will help us to build a censorship resistant, automated money software that can outlive all of us and provide greater value, to the rest of the world. Again, the unfortunate after effect, or maybe the good for some, depending on how you look at it, is that those tokens, once they're there, they're transferable, and so anyone can buy or sell them. And so it's really a remarkable experiment. You're basically watching what is truly like a free market where anyone can buy and sell whatever they want without censorship.
Remarkable really is the right word, because I think your Facebook analogy really explains it well. The difference between something which is centralized and something which is decentralized, truly about the people. And I feel, as you're describing this, that in 20 or 30 years, they're going to go and look back on us and think, wow, these barbarians actually had useless middlemen, like taking huge amounts of wealth from society just to like monitor their transactions. Like, it truly is completely unnecessary. Obviously, the societal shift and the infrastructure and the mindset shift will take time, but the fact that I can truly visualize the future generations looking back, much like we look back on the 1950s, for example.
Yeah, there's other parallels that remind me of what we're seeing realized through DeFi. It's this like power to the people type movements where, if you go back to, let's say, like the 90s, travel agents still existed. Now we think that that's funny now. Why would I use a travel agent when I can use automated software for booking a flight? Hotels, we were all accustomed to. I actually remember as a kid, like the process of my parents calling a hotel to book it. Now we use aggregators that give us the best hotel rates. What are those? Those are automated hotel search engines. We talk about home buying. Home buying, I still think, is an archaic process, which we're currently living through some of this. But if you were to say 10 years ago, you will be able to go on a website, and every 24 hours, you'll be able to see the most updated, accurate estimate of what a home costs, whether it's on the market or not. Well, Zillow was able to create that, and that is more accurate today than any sort of private databases. So anytime there is information that is not available to all, and we see those who are working to disrupt that by using software, which is what Ethereum is in the end. It's just a big global software platform that everyone can build on. That's what's really disruptive about this. That's what, to me, why do I have to go to a bank and give them every last bit of my personal information to prove that I am credit worthy, and then ultimately get that pre-approval letter so that I can potentially go buy a home, but also still live under lots of contingencies, and meanwhile pay all of the assholes in the middle who take a fee despite doing nothing. I could say my real estate agent, she does nothing. The person who's going to underwrite my loan, he does nothing. He presses a number of buttons for me and then punches it out, and they collect a fee. I think these are archaic relationships that need to be eradicated. And to me, like, that's why DeFi is so exciting. It eliminates those people, and you build software that says, if this, then that, if this, then that. And now we're building relationships that mirror and replace what we know to be in traditional finance. So sorry to my real estate agent.
I'm sure they'll understand. I mean, I've been working today for the last, say, 12 hours. I've recorded 2 podcasts and a video, and this conversation is energizing me. It's exciting because it really does change the world, because it's not nothing when it comes to the banks. It's worse than nothing. It's societal damaging stuff they're doing and taking pay for it. I mean, economic theory is so it's so archaic, to use your own words. I think Taleb describes it really nicely. You know how accurate weather forecasts are right now and how often we get it wrong? Now imagine if every raindrop was intelligent. That's trying to guess what's happening in the financial markets and trying to use monetary policy. It really is difficult. That's why the decentralization side just makes so much sense. Switching gears away from the future and to the now. If I'm a listener right now, listening in on this conversation, and I want to go out and try some DeFi. You've mentioned Compound and Aave right now. What sort of returns can I get? And should I begin there? Should I not begin there? What do I do?
Yeah, it's funny. So like, as you ask that, I'm going to go to compound.finance or aave.com, AAVEE. I'm sorry, AAVE. And again, this goes back to like appreciating how transparent and real time, being able to use DeFi is, because this is available 24/7, 365. If you trade in the traditional markets, you get 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which is far less than 50% of the time that is available to actually trade. So if I go to aave.com, what you can do is, if you look at the current markets, it'll show you asset by asset, ETH, DAI, SUSD, USDC. It shows you what is the lending rate and then what is the borrowing rate. Actually, give me a sec here. So like, for example, I can look here to see that there is 2.2 billion Ether in Compound at the moment. If I were to lend it, so this is on the much lower end. Ether tends to always have lower lending rates just because there's so much of it being lent on these markets. It's 0.11%, and I can borrow for 2.56%. However, when you talk about stable coins, which are much more sought after because they're stable and everyone uses them as a unit of account, like the US dollar, I can lend my stable coins at 12.16%, or I can borrow them at 14.94%. And to lend or borrow, it's just a matter of me connecting an Ethereum wallet like MetaMask and transacting, which could take me maybe 10 seconds, or it could take me a few minutes depending on how high or low of a transaction rate I pay. So Karush, if we're looking at aave.com, this is again another borrowing and lending protocol. This has currently, I think they have about 4 billion in assets in the protocol. So one of the terms from traditional finance that translates over to DeFi is assets under protocol, or total value locked. It's very similar to assets under management, but it's not under management in DeFi, because what are we doing? We're using automated money software, so we're not trusting anyone else. We're trusting the code. And so in this case, there's about 4 billion in assets. And if I were to, let's say, lend some USDC, which is a stable coin pegged to the dollar, I can earn 17.38%. It gives me the past 30-day average, to let me know, because these rates go up and down constantly based on how much money people are supplying and how much demand there is to borrow it. The average rate over the last 30 days was 9%. And then Tether, you can lend at 28.91%. So these are really simple examples, and this is just lending. Basically, it's kind of like a savings account, but a little more powerful using it in DeFi.
A little is an understatement. Those are some crazy, crazy returns. And whenever I hear crazy returns, this might be my investment brain, I always associate an equal amount of risk correlated with those returns, which is specifically why I asked, are they capable of producing these returns simply because they cut out that middleman? But as you said, there are other factors involved. So there has to be some sort of risk I'm taking on to get that 17%. Where does that come from?
Yeah, good point. So thankfully, what we're talking about here is a simpler example. And so like for one to earn 28%, 12%, something a little under 10% with stablecoins, that is actually par for the course in DeFi. There's no inflationary governance token involved in this case. That's essentially like pumping that rate and making it higher than what it is. What is different here is that when we talk about the risk that you just mentioned, we are 100% in control of our assets. The only other the only other thing that is in control of our assets is when you lend. Let's say I deposit some USDC. When I deposit that, what Aave gives me is called an A token. So it's essentially it's an IOU. But what is an IOU? An IOU, it's similar to like when I put money into a bank. If I put money into a bank, I don't own my assets. I own a credit note, on their ledger. And so this is very similar to that, except again, we've eliminated all of these middlemen. So I'm holding, in this case, an IOU that means that I am owed X amount of USDC plus interest. And by doing that, the risk, going back to your original question, what we want to call out is because I'm 100% in control, because we've eliminated all of these middlemen and maybe like, the traditional support that you would call, at a bank, it means that there's risk that I could lose my private key if I were to somehow lose access to my wallet and not have it backed up. Pretty standard for crypto, but for those that are newer to crypto, newer to DeFi, that's a foreign risk. If you've never used a Ledger or MetaMask or Coinbase wallet, which is another self-custody wallet, or Trust wallet, that's something that I think factors into why rates can be so high here. A few other things to consider are, could there be a smart contract bug? Could there be a bug in the code? That's the simplest way to say it. And the reason we consider that is, remember that the code at the end of the day is developed by human beings who are very imperfect, we know, and the code is audited by human beings and some automated software. And so there's still risk. There's risk that there could be a bug in this code that would allow someone to exploit the money software and take that money out. There's some pretty epic examples of these. Like there's some DeFi apps over the summer, not Aave, but there's some over the summer that were newer. They launched with unaudited code with anonymous founders. And, we're talking about $10, $20 million that's gone within seconds. So that's a part of the risk. And the way we mitigate that is there's actually a parallel to insurance in DeFi. So we call it smart contract cover. It's essentially DeFi insurance. So I can pay 2.7% to cover however much money I want in Aave for a minimum of 30 days or more if I go to nexusmutual.io. So anyways, I'll pause there. Information overload. What else can I help with?
The information overload, but extremely useful. And I'm pretty sure anyone who is listening to this and has heard those rates and seen the risks, one should go do their own research first. But if you've got money sitting doing nothing, there's very little reason not to at least experiment with this sort of technology. Would you recommend that beginners start with Aave and Compound? Are there other places we should look as well?
Yeah. So the way that I've had some of my friends start with DeFi is first off, you need a wallet. That's the most important thing. And I would highly recommend looking at Argent, ARGENT. It's very, very user friendly. Brilliant designers on that team that have made it dummy proof. And it makes it, I would argue, next to impossible to lose the account because there's like social recovery where you can basically have a friend that has access if you were to lose access. And there's all sorts of backup methods there. Another one is MetaMask. That's the most popular Ethereum wallet. That lets you basically use anything in Ethereum. So highly recommend MetaMask. Once you have that, the simplest thing anyone could do is, I think it's a matter of getting some ether into the system. So the way that we do that is if you use something like Argent. Argent actually has banking relationships where you can take your fiat and then ultimately buy something like ether. Because when we use DeFi, DeFi that is built on Ethereum, at the end of the day, it doesn't cost you anything to access it, but you pay incremental network fees as you use stuff. So if I were to go do a lending transaction, if I were to go deposit my money, I pay this fee that is in Ether. Ether is what's used then to basically pay people who support the network to confirm my transaction on the blockchain. So I would think of it this way. Imagine if instead of paying a subscription to Netflix, that every time you watched a movie for however many minutes, you were incrementally charged for that. That's the way that Ethereum works. You want to lend this? Okay, pay a little fee to do that. If you don't do anything now for 30 days, there's nothing to pay. You're just lending your money and earning interest. So we have the wallet.
Do you think, while you've mentioned it, and we will
continue
please, from that point, do you think that's going to be a big issue, the large costs that we're seeing on the Ethereum network right now?
Yeah, so this has been a hot topic because, okay, when you use a blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum, there is only so much block space, which means there's only so many transactions. There's only so much demand that can be handled in a short amount of time. And so when you look at Ethereum, a few years ago, you would have seen that Bitcoin and Ethereum were very similar in terms of the activity on the blockchain. And over time, and you can't compare apples to apples here because Ethereum powers very complex money applications. It has very simple transactions where you transfer some money like Ether, very simple. It has very complex transactions where maybe you borrow some money, swap it for something else, and then deposit it here. So end of day, what I mean to say is if you go to cryptofees.info, you will see the amount of fees that are generated daily and the 7-day average. So if you look at Ethereum, it's generating about 22.7 million in fees a day. And then Bitcoin is doing about 5.1 million. So less than 25% of what Ethereum does. Now, again, it's not fair to compare apples to apples, but I mean, all said and done here, this demonstrates the demand for use of Ethereum. So this brings us back to this conversation of network fees and how much they cost. If all of us are trying to use Ethereum and transact in this peer-to-peer bankless DeFi infrastructure, if all of us are trying to do stuff with our money, we are essentially bidding when we use these different DeFi apps. We're bidding when we submit a transaction and saying, please confirm that my money moves from here to here. I'm willing to pay this much. That is commonly referred to as the gas price in Ethereum. And so, long story short, when you use something like Argent or MetaMask, when you go to submit a transaction to lend some money, you have a choice. You can say, I'm willing to pay a lower price or a higher price to get my transaction through. Now, if you pay more money, if you're willing to pay a higher transaction fee, it gets your transaction through faster. And so the problem that we've now run into is that Ethereum is so in demand to confirm these transactions. In other words, there's so much usage. There's over 30 billion in assets that are actively transacting in DeFi that the bidding price has gone up and up and up. When I started using DeFi, I would pay, so it's measured in 𝐏𝐻, GWEI. If you go to gasnow.org, GASNOW.org, it'll give you a real-time estimate of the gas price. So when I started using DeFi, it was around 1 to 5 𝐴. The price has now gone up to, it says if you want to get a transaction through in less than 10 minutes, it's going to be 149 𝐴. If you want to do it in less than 15 seconds, it's going to be 319 𝐴. So it is astronomically more expensive than it was a few years ago. Now, the good news is that we have DeFi applications that are moving to, it's called layer 2 technology. All you need to know is it basically means it's a way for us to transact faster and cheaper. You can transact on a DeFi application like Loopring. Loopring.io is a DEX that you can do a trade and it'll settle in 300, 400 milliseconds. You can do that and pay a fraction of a penny per transaction. Compare that with if I were to send you, Karush, some Ether right now, I probably would have to pay about $2 just to send that. And that's a cheaper transaction. So, I mean, long story short, Ethereum has hit such intense product demand, which is remarkable because years ago we were all talking pie in the sky, like about all these DeFi applications and how it's going to be so powerful. Now we have at least 100 very vibrant applications with over 30 billion in assets that are actively trading and insuring and buying options and lending and borrowing and so on. We have so much demand now that these gas prices have gone up. And that's why Ethereum is moving to a proof of stake consensus, which you can read about it, but all you need to know is proof of stake is going to make transactions dirt cheap again. And it's just a better way to scale a blockchain. So that's where we're sort of diverging from the Bitcoin blockchain, which is using proof of work.
You've without a doubt earned the title DeFi Dad, like an encyclopedia, giving us websites, spelling them out, covering every single element to every answer systematically. Your knowledge of DeFi is really remarkable. Congratulations again, taking
thanks.
away
I
from your. It's definitely not flattery because you use the word luck, so I just want to hone in on this. Doesn't sound like luck. This sounds like hard work.
No, I mean, this is, reminder to everyone, like I learned a lot from you and others about trading, which I thought was so important. Like, I think that's what got me through the bear market. It allowed me to be more at peace with what was going on in the market, to understand market structure and what is bullish, what's bearish, what are we doing when we're ranging. And it's great because now one of the coolest things about DeFi is that you can benefit on the upside of a space that you work in by what? Like holding a token similar to holding like a stock. And that to me is really powerful. What if I, as an early user of Facebook, could have bought some Facebook stock before everyone knew about it? That's not possible. All the returns went to the early investors. And I never got a goddamn thing. I mean, in fact, I'm the product at the end of the day. And they own a tremendous amount of data from me, and I own nothing. Another example of this was Audius is actually a non-DeFi application on Ethereum. It's a music streaming platform. They've got, I think, close to 1 million users now. They had about 700,000 about 6 months ago. So this is one of the most mainstream applications that people don't even know runs on Ethereum. It's similar to SoundCloud. So they launched their token, and after having all these users over the years, what happened? They gave free tokens, which have real value. Actually, I could check Audius. They have real value, and all of these users got rewarded. Thank you for supporting us over the years. Now, SoundCloud never did that, and Spotify never did that. You just, you have no sort of upside to benefit from, and that's why these new applications built on Ethereum are so exciting, because it just makes it possible for you to better reward anyone who's willing to spend some time and energy using your application. It's a very common method now, actually, to reward those who use your application. Uniswap did this back in the fall. They rewarded everyone going 2 years back retroactively based on how much trading volume and how much liquidity they provided. And there was some life-changing wealth handed out to people all across the world. I mean, I've talked to people in Venezuela and Uruguay who earned some uni, and that uni is, some of them, it's worth over $100,000 now, and that's their money. There's no one there to take it from them. It's there in their Ethereum wallet. So
it truly is, like we've said multiple times, remarkable. And you said it's like holding, you just hold a token and you get a piece of this, but it goes beyond that now. You don't even need to hold a token or believe in a token. You can just get rewarded for using the platforms. So go be a part of the future, use Compound, Aave, or we're going to get back to whatever other platforms you were going to recommend, and you get rewarded now. So you literally get rewarded for using something tangible, which is very different to 2017, where you were getting rewarded for speculating on ideas much more than actual use cases, which is what I really feel is different this time around. What can make this last a lot longer than the previous cycle, as well as the technicals agreeing with that, but we won't get into that now. So to bring us back on track, we've got our Argent wallet, we've got our first piece of Ethereum. Where is the best place for people to go, and is it Compound and Aave?
So I think one of the easiest things to do then is just swap or trade. Swap is a term that we use in DeFi, but it just means trade. Trade some Ether for another token, something like, this isn't financial advice, but go to somewhere like DeFi Pulse. DeFiPulse.com has a ranking of all the different applications based on how much money is deposited into them, total value locked, which to me it's indicative of use, and I would argue underlying value. So let's say, for example, if I was going to trade some Ether, the native token of Ethereum, for Aave, the native governance token of the Aave borrowing and lending protocol, I could go to, this is where Zapper comes back into the picture. So you go to Zapper.fi. First off, connect your wallet. You can see everything in your wallet. So this now becomes where you track your entire DeFi portfolio, whether you're lending, whether you're simply holding tokens, whether you participate in an insurance market, it's all there. And it's updated in real time. And best of all, this is something that you have to point out to folks that are new to this space. There's no sign up. You just connect your wallet. We don't collect any data. So we have a very strict policy of, you have some data stored locally on your computer so that it loads faster, but we don't store anything, because this is Web3. This is the idea of we're giving you the ability to use applications without having to recreate your identity and give us your personal address and your email and all that bullshit. So you go to Zapper, track your portfolio, click on the exchange tab, and then this is what is called a decentralized exchange. It's an aggregator of all the different trading platforms in DeFi. So essentially, it's a Google search engine for trades. It'll ensure you get the best rate. And then you can choose to swap or trade your Ether to just look up AAVE in this example, or wrap Bitcoin. It tracks the price of Bitcoin, but it's on the Ethereum blockchain. And that's it. It'll take one transaction. You want to go to gasnow.org that I mentioned earlier. Check the gas price and consider, how quickly do I want this transaction to go through? What am I willing to pay? And as you change the gas price, you'll notice how much more or less money you pay. I will say, hopefully by the time someone listens to this, I hope gas prices go back down to below 100 𝐴. This 300 𝐴 stuff is ridiculous. I'm not even doing anything today myself. The prices are up 3x compared to what I would normally pay under 100 𝐴. So that's it. So that's trading. And now once your transaction goes through, you'll be able to see that on Zapper. So on the dashboard, you'll see Ether and, let's say, Aave or whatever token you buy. From there, and we can decide whether we should go down this rabbit hole. It's all about, what can I do to passively earn income with the assets that I hold? Should I be a market maker and provide liquidity? Should I lend through something like Compound or Aave? And there is a place where you can start to look through those opportunities. One of them is, click on the farm tab on Zapper. It's Zapper.fi/farm. We rank at this point around 400 to 500 opportunities, and you can rank them by ROI, by liquidity, whatever your risk tolerance is, whatever tokens you want exposure to. Another place though is just go to compound.finance and ave.com. Those are two really
Before we
popular
get there, I
places.
definitely want to dive down that. So you've mentioned two things right now. We've discussed lending, but we haven't discussed being a liquidity provider. How do I decide which one I want to do or which one is more profitable for me?
Yeah. So, okay, lending is easier to understand because I describe it this way. I actually just talked to a friend today about this. Um, he was asking me, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting to dollar cost average into like Bitcoin and Ether," and I was like, "Cool. Just reminder, buddy of mine. Please don't come back to me if the price goes down. Like like put in whatever money you're comfortable with and comfortable watching it possibly go down 50%." So what you end up doing then is instead of just holding an asset like Bitcoin or Ether, and since we're focused on DeFi, this is all on Ethereum. So we don't have Bitcoin, the native token. We have pegged coins called wrapped Bitcoin and synthetic Bitcoin. So, anyways, back on Ethereum, if I hold an asset, the question is, why not use that asset to earn more of it? A simple example would be if I own Facebook or Google stock, what if you could lend that Facebook or Google stock and earn more of Google or Facebook stock? That's how this works. There is a whole market out there that we've talked about here on Aave, Compound, BZX, DYDX. They are markets where people are actively borrowing and paying interest. So that to me is the simplest. I'm long Ether, I'm long Aave, I'm long SNX. I might as well lend it because the part of it that is surprising, despite all the risks we talked about, is when you lend and you borrow in DeFi, all of the lending is currently over collateralized, which means if I'm a borrower, actually, let's say I'm a lender, I put up one Ether. Someone comes along and they're a borrower and they want to borrow one Ether. They have to put up more Ether than the one Ether to borrow, which is a little confusing if you're new to this and not understanding that there's a lot of people wanting to put up value that they own. They have a store of value in Ether, wrapped Bitcoin, and they want to borrow stable coins against it to go lend those stable coins or use it. Maybe you need to use it for a bill. Maybe someone has a tremendous amount of money and they want to use it to like buy a house. I don't know. But end of day, if I own an asset, I can lend it and I am protected from credit risk. I'm protected from someone defaulting because if the borrower who has put up more money than the one Ether they borrowed, if they do not maintain their loan, if they do not keep a proper loan to value ratio going, then the smart contract has no emotion. The money software has no emotion and it will liquidate them. So it's a very like on the borrower side, there's no one to call and say, please forgive the fact I can't maintain this loan. It's just you screwed up. You broke the rules. If you break the rules, then this happens. Liquidate, sell it, and it means that I, as a creditor, a lender, am protected. So that's why lending is so popular. The other option that we talked about or that you mentioned is providing liquidity. So in DeFi, the reason that we're able to trade without middlemen, the reason that we often don't have closed order books the way that like a Coinbase and Binance works. We have pools of money with normally two tokens. It can be more, but normally two. So we have Uniswap. Uniswap will have, let's say, Ether and DAI, DAI being a digital stable coin or a digital dollar. Folks deposit 50% of this, 50% of that. So now let's say today, Ether is around like $1,600. If I put in one Ether, I would have to also deposit 1,600 DAI to maintain the trading rate. So I'm lending my liquidity, I'm lending my Ether and DAI. Every time someone trades, the money software Uniswap, when I go to trade, let's say Ether for DAI, it charges me 0.3%, 30 basis points. Now, let's pretend that the pool has $100 million in it. All of us that are lending liquidity or providing liquidity, however you want to describe it, all of us own a portion of the pool. We earn a portion of that 0.3%. So the numbers that matter here is how much liquidity is there. Let's pretend I have $1 million in $100 million pool. If we do $20,000 of transaction fees today, remember, I owned 1 million of the 100 million. So I own 1% of the pool. I earn 1% of the transaction fees. That's how like simple and like sort of frictionless this is. It's always a matter of how much of this thing do I own? I earn a proportional amount then of whatever fees are being collected by the money software. And people that use the money software are happy to pay that fee because we're all providing this service, allowing them to trade. So providing liquidity is very popular. If you go to Zapper.fi.invest, Zapper.fi/invest, that's the pool tab. And you can basically look up pools that have tokens you already hold, like Ether and DAI. And you could say, I'm going to provide liquidity and I would like to do this because I'd like to earn market making fees and possibly other rewards. So does that make sense? Any of the words I said confuse you at all, or?
No, that was actually very simple to understand. At least for me, I hope it was for the listeners as well. You have
Yeah.
two options here.
Come bother us. And if you go to Zapper.fi, there's a button for our Discord. So just click on that and we'll hop into Discord and be like, DeFi Dad, I don't understand XYZ, and I'll help you there. So
I'm sure you will, because you are lovely and your energy is so positive. I've definitely learned a huge amount so far, especially with the liquidity provider side. It makes perfect sense. You provide liquidity, you get a cut of the fees instead of the fees going to just one centralized location. And I had so many questions to ask, but these topics are so deep and interesting that we're coming to the end of the podcast now. And I guess there's one last one I'd like to run by you, and I'm sure you'll have a terrific answer for it, like you have for everything else so far. And that is the difference between using a platform like, say, Celsius, where I download an app on my phone, I deposit my coins, and I start earning interest. Definitely not as much as some of the numbers you've shown me, like the 26%, I think you said, you can currently earn on Aave. Why would I use Celsius over these platforms? Is there any reason to use something like Celsius over these?
Yeah, there is. It depends on your risk profile. It depends on, well, here's what it is. If you are interested in using custodial lending, it's very similar to like a bank, but it's a crypto bank. And I would argue that like BlockFi and Celsius and others have come up with really clever business models to allow you to lend and borrow. And you can earn, based on what crypto asset you lend there, just like we described earlier. The difference is you have to trust that BlockFi, Celsius, and others will return that asset to you. There is a risk, obviously, that the business could fail. Some of these businesses now have, some sort of insurance policy. You actually can buy DeFi insurance for your money lent to BlockFi or Celsius if you go to nexusmutual.io. So, but anyways, yeah, long story short, if you are interested in using those, the type of profile is someone who says, I want nothing to do with that Argent wallet, MetaMask. I don't like what they're talking about. I don't want to self-custody. I don't want to be 100% in control of my assets because I don't trust myself. I'd rather be able to call customer support, for one of these companies and let them store my assets. Then it's ideal. For those who are like, you know what, the risk is worth the reward here. I can earn a lot more. And I've done my research. I've learned how to use these self-custody Ethereum wallets, and I'm willing to transact and participate in DeFi. So that's really like the major difference. The only thing I'd warn people of is there's definitely a trend of using DeFi now as like a buzzword. So, what is DeFi? It means no KYC, no sign up. You can use it globally. It means that it's in most cases powered by Ethereum. There are some DeFi applications on other blockchains though, and we'll probably see that grow. It means that I just connect my wallet and there's no permission that I have to ask to use it. Celsius, what I just described, is not DeFi. It is a hybrid, which I think is a very valuable model still, fits a profile of a lot of folks out there that want exposure to crypto assets and want to earn by lending. But it is not DeFi, because DeFi is decentralized finance. So it's, again, some interesting hybrid of centralized finance. The one other thing, the one last point here, just because I know I don't want to keep you over here, is one thing we didn't talk about that relates back to this, because we talked about 26, 28% return lending annually to, one of these DeFi protocols, and the fact that you can deposit and pull your money out whenever you want. Like, that's another powerful part of it. Celsius won't let me just withdraw my money instantly. Not because they're bad people, it's just because it's their business model, and they're careful to make sure that the wrong person isn't trying to withdraw, that I'm not like a thief trying to take that back. In DeFi, I'm totally in control again. It's whoever owns access to my wallet can withdraw my money from something like Aave or Compound. The major reason, though, the thing that gets people excited is there is this common thread of activity in DeFi that we call yield farming. And the way you qualify it is, it means that you are normally participating in multiple applications at once. Those applications benefit by working together. So maybe like Synthetix is bootstrapping their liquidity, but they're using Uniswap to create that liquidity. And they're saying, hey, everyone, if you provide liquidity for our token plus Ether in Uniswap, we will pay you weekly X amount of SNX token, our native governance token. And so now what am I doing? I'm in Uniswap. I'm a liquidity provider, so I'm earning market making fees from Uniswap. I'm also holding an asset that could go up in value. I'm also being paid some SNX in this simple example from Synthetix. And so I'm earning multiple forms of yield, but I'm doing one thing. And it's all thanks to basically a partnership of two applications saying, hey, do you realize if we like work together, like Uniswap could grow its liquidity and Synthetix could grow liquidity for the SNX Ether pair? Like, yeah, this is a good thing. Let's craft a program and we will reward users. We will allow them to claim rewards based on how much liquidity they provide. Yield farming is a wild concept, and this is where this is a concept that is not on the fringe of DeFi. This is what is so powerful, is that all these different applications, they stack on top of one another and they create more powerful applications, and then more powerful applications get built on top of those. And at the end of the day, that composability creates these intense network effects. So these different protocols are becoming larger and they're becoming more used, and it's allowing them to work with other protocols. And basically, it's that whole idea of going back to liquidity is king. And so if we have all these applications benefiting from one another, it's enabling us to create a more liquid, decentralized finance. And it's rewarding users for the intense amount of risk that they've taken along the way. So you can, I mean, it is very normal. I'm not, saying that it comes with no risk, but it's very normal to be earning 50% annual on some asset that you're lending. If you go to Zapper.fi/farm, you can start looking through these different opportunities and see that, hey, if I'm a liquidity provider for Ether and Sushi in Sushi Swap, I don't know what it is today, but at one point it was like 80%. Wow, I'm long Sushi, I'm long Ether. So if I just lend it, the two of them together, that allows people to trade, and Sushi Swap will pay me in the Sushi token, and I will earn market making fees. Like that's how it that's why DeFi has gotten so much attention. It's just a wild way to tie together incentives, and that's why we're all excited.
DeFi Dad, my team's going to be so mad. I'm supposed to keep the episodes at 40 minutes right now, but this is too fascinating. So we can keep going. So the yield farming is, I've heard stories of people getting up to, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've been told 800% a year. You can get absolutely wild returns if you take the right plays and do it in the correct way. With Zapper, is it as easy as I just click a button and I'm good to start yield farming?
So we're more of like, think of Zapper as like we're an aggregator of those opportunities. So we're basically just making it possible for you to search and rank them. The caveat to what I just said is often there will be new protocols that launch and they have a new token they're minting. Now there can be speculation around that new governance token. So what happens when you're minting a new token, or let's pretend you've already minted it, it has a max supply of 1 million tokens. Well, now you have a market that is participating, earning the new token, and then that token is trading. And that is where, I mean, what you said, 800% is, again, par for the course. I mean, there's people earning, several thousand% annualized. But some of these opportunities, like to caveat that, is that they're very short term. What if you're earning 1,000% for only 2 days? That's very possible. And these rates, what happens is let's say that a new protocol launches and they're lending and borrowing, and they say, if you lend your money, we will pay you, X amount of tokens per day. Well, people dogpile in, and then someone tweets, I'm earning 800%. Well, what happens is everyone else says, oh, wow, I want to participate in that. Now, that's good if the protocol is created by a team that has good intentions and it's audited and the code doesn't have bugs in it that could be used to exploit it. What happens when a bad actor steps in? This is the sort of thing, like, we haven't seen it as much, but it has happened. And so you'll find that people will, it's very similar to trading. People brag about the wins, they don't tell you about the losses. And so I'm a very conservative person, I think, in the range of like DeFi. And I tend to focus on battle tested applications like Aave and Compound, where I know that the team has battle tested code, they have very public reputations. And I know at the end of the day that the code has been audited. So just be careful. Like, this is like, jump in Zapper's Discord. Like, there's just so many questions you're going to have. And another thing is, watch the DeFi 101 web series. If you just search DeFi 101 by The Defiant, it's at the Defiant, what is it? TheDefiant.io. If you go there, there's a series called DeFi 101, and that's where we cover like 30 different videos of really short topics on DeFi, and it'll help bring you up to speed as you're learning.
Well, meditators, there is so much information in this episode, so much actionable value add for you to go. We've got an encyclopedia of websites for you to check out, learn more about DeFi. There's yield farming now you can do. You can try become a liquidity provider. Maybe check out Celsius if you don't even want to think and just drop something into an app. And BlockFi, you said, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other applications as well. Guys, there's opportunity all over the place. Most of all, pay attention to how DeFi could change the world. By participating in these protocols, you're participating in the future. You are actively taking steps to become a part of a new, more improved infrastructure, and rightly so. There will be rewards attached to this. DeFi Dad, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure I would, and I know our listeners would as well, love to have you back on the show in the future to talk more DeFi, because I could talk to you for 2 hours, man.
No, anytime. Gosh, one last thing. Go to DeFiDad.com. I left out the most obvious resource. That's how I got started. They're all tutorials. They're very detailed, like, hold your hand through every step. Those are videos. DeFi for Beginners is the playlist. Those are videos that I will walk you through every single step so you can learn. And you don't have to spend any money. You can spend as little as you want, but the tutorials are all there free so that you can enjoy.
Listeners know I absolutely adore free education. It is the future right now. All this information should be free. We should all be working together to push it forward. So DeFi Dad, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And meditators, I hope to see you again for another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like us to continue bringing you fascinating people from across the world, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you like to listen to these podcasts, and share the episode with a friend. If you have feedback or an idea for a potential guest, reach out to me on Twitter at 𝐏𝐸𝐻, and do not forget we write a newsletter covering all important topics in crypto and traditional markets. We send it out 3 times a week. The Market Meditations newsletter. You also get early access to these episodes, and you get transcripts and extra notes as well, so make sure to subscribe there as well.